In this video, I'm going to walk through the rubric for the 2020 AP English Language exam, point by point, and explain exactly what you need to do to get the best possible score. Remember how the 2020 exam will work. You're going to have a total of 50 minutes, 45 minutes to write one question. This is free response question 2, the rhetorical analysis essay. You'll have 5 minutes to upload your answer. Remember, you can handwrite your responses and upload photos of them, or you can type them. Now, what's new about this year's exam, in addition to all the other changes, is that we've got a 6-point rubric. Traditionally, the rubric for AP English Lang and AP English Lit has been graded out of 9 points, and it's what we call a holistic rubric. Holistic is like the whole picture. So a reader would read through your essay and say, I really like this essay. I think it gets a 7, 8, or a 9. Or this essay was okay, it had some problems. I'll give it a 4, 5, or a 6. Or this was a really bad essay. I'm going to give it a 1, 2, and 3. So take a look at our rubric for this. We've made a checkbox version of the official College Board one and made it a little bit easier to use. You can download this on our website at marcolearning.com. Just check out the link in the description. So let's check out row A. Row A is the most important point that you can earn on this rubric because it's the foundation of the other 2 rows. You need to earn the thesis point to do really well in rows B and C. So let's take a look at the thesis point. Your thesis must be defensible. It must be something that you can argue and support with evidence that somebody could plausibly make about the speech that's given. So for example, if the speech that you're reading is a eulogy, that is a speech of praise for someone, and the prompt says that the person who delivered the eulogy was praising someone, and you argue, actually no, he was denigrating that person, he wasn't praising him, then you have a problem. You actually don't have a defensible thesis because no one could argue that, right? So make sure you use the prompt to align your argument with the information that they give you. You need to examine the writer's rhetorical choices. You can't just give a plot summary of everything that you read in the passage you're given. So let's say it's a letter, the letter opens with a problem and it closes with a solution. If you just summarize the whole time, you're not really analyzing the writer's rhetorical choices. But remember, the thesis point is independent of all the other points. You want to have a thesis at the end of your first paragraph that answers the question. Now take a look over here. Let's say you didn't earn the thesis point. One of the reasons could be this, that it wasn't a defensible thesis. But another one is that you merely restate the prompt. You just quote the prompt back to the readers without any kind of analysis, any step forward off the prompt. Best advice I can give you guys is use the prompt as a springboard. Take the information they give you, take the task that they give you, explain why the author did what she did, use that as a springboard to make an argument about how you've interpreted the text. That is what a defensible thesis that isn't just restating the prompt is all about. And you can see in this third checkbox, if you just summarize the topic with no actual claim, no argument, you could run into trouble. And finally, if you're off topic, you just answer a question that you weren't asked. That's a basis for you not earning the thesis point. So the thesis, which again is over here, you can earn up to 1 point. Let's just assume you were good, you did it, you have a defensible thesis that analyzes the writer's rhetorical choices. You're done. Good work. Out of the 6 points, you've earned the first one, the thesis, really the gateway point. Now let's take a look at this second row. You can see that it's called Evidence and Commentary, and it's known as row B in the official rubric. Now the thing about evidence and commentary is you're really moving from left to right, from here all the way over to here. And you can think of almost a wall existing here between 2 and 3. That there's a certain thing that unifies the responses that are 0, 1, and 2. They lack something. They lack a real connection to the argument. And something that really unifies 3 and 4 is a clear connection. That is the evidence that you use, little tiny quotes from the passage or parts of the passage that you cite, that you've really connected them to an argument and built an argument up. So your goal should be to break through this wall and get 3 or 4 points. Let's talk about how to do that. The best way to do this is to make sure that you have abundant evidence. You want enough evidence. A lot of people get caught in plot summary. The whole paragraph is just you recycling back what the author said. Maybe you're accurate in your plot summary, but you're not really analyzing. You're not grabbing specific parts, specific choices. Remember, that's what this is about, the writer's rhetorical choices. If you're not identifying that for me, I'm going to have a tough time as a reader giving you 3 or 4 points. So that's the first thing, is to create a really nice bed of evidence in your essay. Now, one question we always get is, well, should I quote from the passage? And the answer is kind of. If you're going to quote from the passage, take tiny little quotes, a few words, or if you're talking about sentence structure, you can grab a slightly larger part, but don't retype or rewrite 3 or 4 sentences in quotes. That's not helping you. The reader has the passage in front of her. She doesn't need to reread it in Times New Roman 12 or in your handwriting. So focus on really grabbing pieces of evidence that are relevant to the argument that you're making. Now, the second part of this, you can see it in the title here, it says evidence and commentary. What is your comment on that quote? So for example, let's take a look at 3 points over here. It says that there are specific textual references that support all claims. So specific moments. In paragraph 3, the author does something, right? And uses this particular word, uses the word cheap. That's another question we get all the time. People say, well, how do I cite the passage? Do I include line numbers or paragraph numbers? Now, in the 2020 exams, guys, you're not going to actually have line numbers. So you can either cite the paragraph or just say that the author does it. You don't have to necessarily identify the paragraph each time. So I've got those specific textual references. Now notice what it says about commentary. You need to have some explanation of how that evidence supports the argument. So you could say in the 3rd paragraph, the author uses the word cheap. That's you doing a plot summary. Why did the author use the word cheap? Why is that significant to your argument? So you could just add the phrase in order to. In the 3rd paragraph, the author uses the word cheap in order to undermine her opponent at a moral level, to portray the person as being motivated by the wrong ideals. And then you have an opportunity to connect that back to your thesis. So commentary is about that development, taking the bit of evidence you've grabbed and really explaining it carefully. Notice you also have to discuss at least one rhetorical choice's contribution to the writer's argument. So you need to make sure as you're going through your essay, how the rhetorical choice of the author, the use of that word cheap, really helped the author accomplish her goal. That's what evidence and commentary is all about, supporting your analysis and the central purpose of the author. The more that you do this, the further you get along in this row and you can earn points. So let's just say you've earned 1 point for thesis and you earned successfully 3 of the 4 points. Let's say it wasn't quite good enough to earn 4 points in the eyes of the grader. Now the grader is going to move on to the final row. The final row of the rubric is row C, for sophistication. Now this is the point everyone's talking about. Everyone's worried about getting sophistication. Let me just remind you guys, you don't want to focus on getting sophistication first. You want to focus on getting the thesis point first. That's the gateway to really succeeding on the evidence and commentary row. The College Boards indicated that they're not going to award 3 or 4 points in evidence and commentary if you have no thesis at all. And in order to earn the sophistication point, you need to earn the thesis point and be pretty far along in row B. Now let's take a look at how the sophistication point is earned. It's pretty confusing. You don't have to do all of these things, but any of them could be good enough to earn the sophistication point. So the first box here says sophisticated thought and or notable awareness of the rhetorical situation. So the sophistication point is awarded for being sophisticated. So this is not really something that there's one trick that you can do throughout your essay. You want to make sure that you have the most complex presentation of your ideas and that you talk about the rhetorical situation when you can. Remember what the rhetorical situation is. It's all about who the speaker is, who the audience is, and why they're all together in the same room if they are. Right? What's brought these people into a conversation with each other, and how does that affect what the person's saying? Now we have separate videos about this on our YouTube channel. I recommend you check out our playlist for AP English Language. Let's take a look at the second bullet point. It says thorough analysis of the impact of the writer's rhetorical choices. So the writer uses the word cheap in the 3rd paragraph. What's the impact that that might have on the person who's reading this letter or listening to this speech? How does it help the author fulfill her purpose? Address the passage's complexities or tensions. Maybe the person speaking has to speak to multiple audiences at once. Maybe the person speaking is kind of speaking out of both sides of his mouth. That complexity, that tension, that uncertainty, if you identify that specifically and develop it, is a way to earn the sophistication point. The final way is a mature, convincing writing style. So even if you do none of the previous things on this rubric, you can earn the point for sophistication just because you're a great writer. And that makes sense because this is AP English Language and it's an essay. It should be about great writing. So let's take a look over this rubric. Let's say that the reader gave you the point for thesis, +1. gave you 3 points for evidence, but said you're not going to earn the sophistication point. We could say that this essay was a 1-3-0 essay, which is a 4 out of 6. Now the question that everyone's asking is, well, what does a 1-3-0, what does a 4 out of 6 convert to on the final score you're going to get 1 through 5? And the answer is, we won't know until after the scores are released. Once the readers have graded all the different essays, they'll be able to figure out exactly which prompts and which responses scale and score a particular way on that rubric. So don't worry about getting individual points. Don't worry about playing a game. Make sure you have a thesis. Make sure you have enough evidence from the passage and that you comment on that evidence. You tie it back to your argument, you tie it back to the writer's rhetorical choices, and you try to get it all done in 45 minutes. I know this is a super stressful year. I wish you guys the best of luck on your exam. Focus on writing as much as you can, as well as you can. Good luck.